Hello everyone, Bob Grzecki here today with another edition of our free video series and introduction of yet another free workbook. Today we're going to talk about a hot topic that frankly has been requested by numerous of our followers based on the current regulations here in Canada with firearms, as well as some general confusion around the topic. Today we're going to talk about shotgun chokes. My hope is to simplify what's often thought of as too difficult, too detailed, or even too confusing. With the information I hope to show you today, combined with our workbook, hopefully we can shed some light for you on this topic. If you're interested in shotgun shooting and you want more on-target success in the field or on the range, you need to understand chokes. So stick around and let's dig in. So in order to understand the function of the shotgun, let's talk a little bit about the basics first. First, let's do the basics of a shot shell. The shot shell is the ammunition used in the shotgun. To understand how choke works, we need to understand the components of the shot shell. So a basic 12-gauge shotgun shell, this is the finished product. This is what it looks like when it's finalized and crimped. It's made up of several components. The shot shell case with the base, here's a cross section of it showing where the primer goes, which is at the base. The primer is just a small cup that contains a mixture that causes a flash. When the flash takes place, the powder, which is between my finger and the primer, that little bit of powder burns. When it burns, it expands and forces this plastic piece, which is called a wad, there it is in its full size, forces it out the barrel. The wad cup itself contains a number of pellets. We'll talk about the numbers and the sizes in a little bit. So a chain reaction takes place when your firearm is discharged or you pull the trigger. The primer is struck, ignites the powder, pushes the wad out of the barrel containing the shot downward of the barrel. So shot is many projectiles. It comes in many different sizes. And here you have an example of shot. Here's an example of wads. They come in many different sizes and shapes. Over here you see a shot shell unexpanded and expanded. This becomes important because in order for you to understand the components of the shotgun, where the forcing cone is, you must see the end of the shot shell when it's crimped. And then when it's uncrimped, you can see the length is quite a bit different. So what happens is these crimps fold outward and the projectiles leave the barrel. This is a 2 3/4 inch, here's 3 inch, and here's 3 1/2. So the basics of the shot shell are these components. The shot are these small pellets that leave the barrel. So a shotgun barrel is a metal tube through which rapidly expanding gases convert stored energy to kinetic energy, and it pushes the shot, or a single projectile, which is known as a slug, out of the open end of the barrel. So basically, a shotgun barrel is little more than a tube with one closed end. And in shotguns, this device, the barrel, controls the tightness and the quality of the pattern. Now, most shotguns have smooth bores, which means there are no spiral grooves cut into the metal called rifling. Now, these smooth bores usually have a constriction about 2 inches from the muzzle, which is known as the choke. There's a cross section of the muzzle with the choke inside screwed into the end of the barrel. Two other important terms to help you understand how the barrel works on a shotgun. There's the tapered portion of the action end of the barrel called the forcing cone. And then finally, the front end of the business end of the barrel is called the muzzle. I mentioned slugs earlier. A shotgun slug is a specific type of shotgun shell with a single piece, usually of lead, called the slug. You can see it from the top there. This is a saboted slug. This is a lead slug. This is in contrast to shotgun shells containing shot, which are just round pellets. The higher the number, the smaller the shot size, and the larger the number of pellets in the shot shell. Let me show you that in a bit more detail. So remember I said that the higher the number, the smaller the shot size, and the larger the number of pellets in the shot shell. So as an example, a large pellet, SSGs, we move to BBs, then to number 2, and you can see the size beginning to dwindle, getting smaller. Number 4s, number 5s, 6s, 7.5s, 8s, and 9s. So if you stay on 9 and you think about the number of pellets that that particular shot would have, in a normal 1 1/8 ounce load, there would be 658 pellets approximately in a 1 1/8 ounce, 2 3/4 inch shotgun shell. Move down to number 6, and a number 6 would have 253 pellets, so less pellets. Move down to number 4, and it would have about 152 pellets, quite a bit less. And then down to BB, and you'd see that it would have approximately 56 pellets in that particular load or charge. The higher the number, the smaller the pellet, and the more pellets it will be in the actual shotgun shell charge. It's important because chokes act differently on different size pellets, and if the objective is to place a large number of pellets into a pattern, you want the largest size pellet in the pattern for the distance that you're shooting. So choke is dependent upon the combination of the choke size and the shot shell size, which contains this varied range of pellet sizes. Let's talk about choke markings. Choke markings are used to identify different choke tubes. The marks can be bands of color, they can be stars, or they can be notches. Unfortunately, different manufacturers mark their choke tubes in different ways. Beretta markings will be different to Browning, which will be different to Perazzi, and so on. The amount of choke is usually stamped on the side of the shotgun choke tube, or there may be thin slots cut in the exposed rim of the tube at the muzzle end of the barrel opening with the number of slots. For example, that has 1 slot. This has 2, 3, 4, and 5. This 1 slot should not be confused with these 4 larger slots that are used to place a choke tube wrench inside in the event that a choke becomes stuck. So the 4 tube notches that are large are made to fit the actual choke tube wrench. They have no relationship whatsoever to the size of the choke. 1 notch, in this case, means full. In the case of fixed chokes, which means the barrel or barrels do not have interchangeable chokes, but there is a specific amount of constriction that's set, the choke is often marked on the tang of the barrel. And that becomes exposed when you remove the forearm. If you examine the underside of the block near the chamber, there's going to be markings there that can refer to the specific manufacturer. In this case, a Browning BT99, there's 1 star there, and it shows 1 star, 1 notch, or full. 1 star, full choke for this particular Browning shotgun. Sometimes you're going to have to measure the bore exit diameter of the choke tube to determine precisely which choke is in the firearm. To do that, specialized tools are required, such as a micrometer or a barrel reader. That's for another video, and it's a pretty detailed process. I want you to refer to the manufacturer of the firearm you're using and see their system of markings. There are many. So as we've learned, choke is merely the constriction at the end of the barrel that allows the pattern of pellets that's discharged through the barrel to stay tight or to spread further apart. There's lots and lots and lots of different types of chokes, and I call choke junkies the people that have to have one for every purpose, for the different light, for the different clay target, for the different distance of the bird, for the different blowing of the breeze, and so on. So a lot like fishermen who believe that they have to have a hook for every single color, day, change, and time, fish hooks are often designed to catch fishermen, not fish. Well, chokes can be compared that way. So, having said that, that makes it extremely confusing for a beginner to understand what chokes are. So there are basically 3 types of chokes. Let me describe them for you. The 3 types of chokes that are the basic ones, the first is full, and as we learned earlier, this tight constriction delivers a narrow or dense spread. The second of the most common types of chokes is a modified choke, and it has less constriction and therefore delivers a wider spread, a medium width, if you will. And then the third most common is the improved cylinder, which has even less constriction and delivers a wide overall pattern. So the three common ones are tight, medium, and open. Full, modified, and improved cylinder. There are many in between and on each end, and we'll describe those for you a bit as well. So let's talk about each of the chokes individually, and let's start at the top of the chart. Let's start off with the negative choke. So this negative choke, which is minus 0.005, is called a diffuser or often a spreader choke. It's a choice for Skeet's low targets that are coming towards you, or Sporting Clay's rabbits, for example, some of the springing teal targets that are close. But a negative choke has an inside diameter greater than the barrel's bore. So what does that mean? That means that the inside bore of a shotgun barrel is approximately 0.730 one-thousandths of an inch. The inside diameter of the diffuser choke is even tighter than that, or more open than that, I should say, minus 0.005. So it allows for a very quick pattern to be spread and allows you to connect up close and personal on those targets that are really right close to you. The next one is the cylinder choke. And the cylinder choke has basically no constriction. So that means if the bore of the shotgun barrel is 0.730, cylinder is about the same. There is no constriction on this choke, so it allows for an open pattern as well. And ultimately, this choke allows, once again, close skeet targets like Station 8 or a low house birds that are on Sporting Clay's low house birds on Station 1 and 2 in Skeet. And it allows for this rapidly expanding pattern, and it'll help you hit those targets that are basically the poppers or the close ones that we've talked about earlier. Those pesky bouncing rabbit targets, for example, in Sporting Clay's cylinder choice is a good one for that particular target. So the next one down on our chart is Skeet, and it has a measurement of a choke diameter of 0.725 one-thousandths of an inch. So this one is a pretty popular choke with skeet shooters, hence the name Skeet, or the abbreviation SK on the top of the choke tube. Skeet guns have two barrels that allow skeet shooters to shoot pairs. So when a double barrel shotgun is equipped with this choke, it makes a great choice for the second shot at the close stations when it's paired with maybe a negative or a cylinder choke for the first shot. For shooting pairs at the farther stations, like number 3 or through number 5, skeet choke is an excellent choice. You might consider trying a skeet choke for that first shot if a target's approaching you, and maybe shifting to a tighter choke for the second shot if a target is traveling away from you. A skeet choke can also be used in Sporting Clays or upland game bird hunting, but basically this is designed for that close incomer or a pair in Sporting Clays, or the incoming doves near a water hole or a speedy teal that's passing by really close. Skeet chokes will get the job done for that particular cause. Now this improved cylinder is one of the more common chokes, and it has one of the more common choke constrictions. It's a choke often carried by shooters and used by many people. The choice is basically to use this choke for everything from 16-yard trap to the second shot on skeet pairs. It also works on many of the clay target presentations thrown on the Sporting Clays courses. The next one on our chart is the light modified, and a light modified choke has a restriction of 0.715. So the LM stands for light modified, and it's starting to get a little tighter. Light modified has become very popular among shooters of all types and all targets, from waterfowl to upland game birds to even clay targets. This is the one that's used by most of those people that don't want to fool around switching chokes at every station. Light modified also provides a great all-around choice for Sporting Clays. It's more forgiving than modified, yet provides denser patterns than the improved cylinder. And if a person had to choose 1 or 2 chokes to be used for all-around shooting, with the exception of maybe high flyers, something like geese and some of those really high clays, this would probably be the choice. The next one is the modified choice, and it's M on the abbreviation, or MOD on the actual choke itself. Now this one is actually 0.020, or modified on the barrel scale would be about 0.710. So modified is often thought of as the best choke constriction for traditional shooters. It's considered a pretty dependable standby for many of the target choices. So if you're going to use a handicap trap or tall tower shots in sporting clays, or even pursuing some of the prairie birds at the longer distances like a sharp-tailed grouse, you might consider fine-tuning and using even more restriction or constriction. A prognosis on the trap range, and especially in the field, has been heard where the modified is as tight as you dare go when shooting steel shot. But in today's world of specialty aftermarket chokes, you can go tighter, and we'll explore that a little bit later. So the next two in our chart are the light full, or .030. So when you look at light full on the barrel constriction side, it's about .700 one-thousandths of an inch, illustrated by the LF on this particular brand. This is a Winchester choke, and it shows the LF abbreviation for light full. So light full is a choke that is one of the newer offerings. It's not really used by that many just yet, but light full or LF is beginning to be used by confident handicap trap shooters. It also has a pretty good effect as a waterfall choke at some of the longer distances. Many of the pass shooting goose chokes labeled full actually measure closer to this light full in true constriction, which brings up the point of measuring your chokes to see if they match the seller's claims. Again, best methods include trial with your shotguns and a patterning board, which I'm going to describe a little bit later. The high-flying snow goose tend to be a challenge for most of people, and the light full gets the job done. The thinking is the result is maybe fewer cripples and more birds on the ground and in the pot. So do yourself a favor and try to test your shotgun and your shell combination with light full on a BB or a triple B steel shot. You may find this a better option than modified. The next one is the full choke. And full choke on this particular choke, this is a Briley choke tube, and it has an F on it, the abbreviation. It's the last of the three common chokes. Full finds its niche basically on the trap field, and it's used by AAAs and AA shooters, and in the field when chasing after some of those late season pheasants who seem to be able to spring up from unbelievable distances, or wide open prairie sharp-tailed grouse. This is a standard choke, and it often comes with a new gun. The full choke, often recommended for field birds such as turkeys, but there may be even better choices for pursuit of maybe a Thanksgiving meal like a turkey, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, pattern test your shot shell and your choke combination to see works best at the distance that you want your pellet mass to appear. So the last two on the chart are extra full and super full. Sometimes super full is referred to as a turkey choke. Now extra full, which is .045 of a constriction, or as it relates to the choke diameter, .685 one-thousandths of an inch. This is a Briley choke tube, and it has XF marked on the extended choke furls so that you can remove it with your fingers, but a very tight pattern. While some would say that choke doesn't have many applications in the target sports, this particular choke, extra full is considered to be the go-to option on a really windy day by lots of trap shooters. It's also thought of as the right medicine by many turkey hunters, but there are numerous factory extra full extended choke tubes produced, and one shouldn't rule that out as an option. The next one is a super full, or sometimes called turkey choke. This one says turkey XF, but the actual dimension of this choke is actually .675 one-thousandths of an inch. So whereas the extra full was .45, this is .055, so it's 55 is tighter than .45. This is about as tight as they get. If your objective is to lay a large number of pellets over the vital head and neck area of a turkey that may hold together up to some 40-yard marker, or maybe even a little further, then the super full choke or the extra full turkey choke is the objective. So are you confused yet? Well, hopefully not, but let's talk about the difference between now extended versus flush. So here's an example of two chokes that are extended from the barrel and two chokes that are flushed. To make the decision just a little bit more complicated for you, all the chokes that we've talked about so far come in flush, which they don't extend beyond the end of the muzzle, and they also come in extended, which, as the name implies, extends beyond the muzzle. It's worth considering when choosing choke tubes. One school of thought is extended chokes often pattern better than flush-mounted chokes. Since extended chokes usually have a longer taper, they stick out longer, so you get that extra distance to assist with the patterning, and they supposedly pattern better than flush-mounted chokes. The distance and the amount might be immeasurable, but if you're looking for that 1/100th bird difference, it might make a difference. So the longer taper on the parallel section of the extended choke tube, in which the constriction can occur more gradually and uniformly, as opposed to the more abrupt constriction in the shorter tubes, may be on your side. Additionally, extended chokes take very little effort to remove and can often be swapped out quickly by using your fingers instead of choke tools. So this makes it handy and quick for those choke junkies that I talked about earlier. Even though they have knurled edges at the end, they sometimes are so tight a tool is required to remove them. Regardless, they're certainly popular in the clay target sports. Field gunners often like them because they can be removed quickly while wearing gloves when those high flyers seem to be all that approach the decoys. Regardless of what you use, never ever change a choke on a loaded gun. Check to ensure that the firearm is unloaded. Once you're certain it's safe, then and only then can you place your hands near the muzzle and remove the choke. Put a little bit of lubricant on the tube threads and some on the barrel threads, because removing a stuck choke is no treat and requires a gunsmith's assistance. The patterning board. Practical patterning takes place at whatever distance you intend to shoot. Basically, it's a simple process of taking a large piece of paper. In this case, it has a turkey target on it, but take a large piece of paper about 40 inches, put your choke on the shotgun and discharge it. Test it, count the pellets, take a look at the pattern, watch the spread, and then determine the distance that you're going to be at in that 40-inch circle. Perhaps it might be a 20-inch circle, and determine if the number of pellets in that area is tight enough for the target that you've chosen at the distance you've chosen. But practical pattern testing is vital. You've seen all the combinations of shot chokes that we've got. There's 6 common ones and another dozen or so not so common ones. Test your pattern on the board to make sure that you know where your pellets are going to shoot. So I've taken a couple patterns that I've used to determine whether my shotgun was shooting where I wanted to shoot with the choke combination and the shell combination in Skeet. So I've taken a 20-inch circle and I've counted the pellets. The red dots are the first count and the black dots are the second count, so I could be sure. So shooting at 20 yards, which is the distance I expected to shoot most of my targets at, on that particular shotgun with a Skeet choke, and I was using number 9 pellets, I counted about 650 pellets in the shot shell that is actually loaded, and of those, only 33% of them actually were inside the target zone. So you ask yourself, if at 20 yards, is there an escape hole for a clay target in that pattern? There could be. No pattern is perfect, but the distance that you're going to break the target at, you want the largest concentration of pellets at. By changing the type of choke, using this particular combination in that shotgun with the original brand Perazzi choke in my Perazzi MT6, I changed to a Teague choke with the same shot shell, the same number of pellets, the same size and the same distance, and I went from about 33% coverage in that combination to as much as almost 59% coverage, which means there was less escape holes or a blown pattern that could possibly exist. This particular Teague choke on this shotgun worked better. The thing to remember about patterning and about chokes, as I said earlier, all chokes are not created equally. The same brand from the same manufacturer, when shot at the patterning board, will tell you if it's been truly manufactured and it is exactly what you were expecting when you buy it. Not all chokes are created equally. And be careful, just because you spend more doesn't mean you're going to get better. Okay, so that's it. You have to understand that a lot of science and mathematics are involved in creating the perfect choke for a shotgun. There's so many factors that go into making good chokes, such as the length of the shotgun barrel, the material of the choke, the geometry of the choke, the milling or the manufacturing of the choke, the final interior and exterior finish of the choke. Oftentimes you get what you pay for, and it's not uncommon for different valued chokes to shoot in different places, even though they bear the same constriction. Unfortunately, it's also not uncommon for two chokes from the same manufacturer and the same constriction to shoot in different places. It's less likely with some of the finer or premium brands and models of chokes that are currently made. But the bottom line is, more money does not always mean better, so please be careful. Shotgun choke can make all the difference to your shooting, so it's well worth your time and effort to take this seriously. Use this video and the accompanying workbook. Learn exactly what shotgun choke is, what it does, how it affects your shooting, and which you should be using. Test it and be sure. The patterning board is going to reveal many secrets and dispel many of the tales that are heard around the shooting benches, the goose blinds, and the coffee shops. So good luck with your shooting. Have fun testing and perfecting your choke combinations. Please, please be safe, and we'll see you in the field or on the line. Cheers.